Hey everybody, Chris here, and I've got a special visitor with us today, Robert Hunter. I've known for probably almost 20 years. I lived in Sandy next to his house for about 12 years, and then we've been here in southern Utah for 5 years, so probably about 20 years or so. And I've always been very impressed with the things that Robert does, and to me, it's like everything he does is top notch. And to give you an example, you don't know him like I do, but every year he does this crazy thing. He rides his bike from Salt Lake City to St. George, where he has a condo. And if you don't know, that's what, about 300 miles, Robert?
About 330. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does it in 3 days. So, you're doing about 100 miles a day. And I tell you, he's tried to get me to do it a few times, but it's, I just have a hard time sitting on my bike for 10 hours straight. I think sometimes it's probably 12 hours one of those days.
Yeah. I think the one day is about 132 miles, and that one I've taken as long as 13 or 14 hours on that day if there's a headwind.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a long time on your bike. So, but
A little
so
sore.
what's that?
You get a little sore,
Yeah, that's true.
saddle sore. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've invited Robert to join us today because he has a lot of experience in the profession that he's in. Uh, I use him personally to help with taxes and that, but I, he has so much knowledge and wisdom in this area. I think that it's very helpful for young men and young women trying to decide what kind of career to start. And I think the best way to determine, if this would be a good path for you is to talk to someone that's been doing it for, I don't know how long you've been doing it, Robert.
Well, it'll be 43 years, I believe, now.
Oh, wow. 43 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like 9 years old when you started.
Yes.
You, you've been doing it for a long time. So maybe you could spend a minute and talk about what a CPA is and the background as far as the company that you had for a long time and where you're at now.
Sure. A CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. And to be a certified public accountant, there are both education requirements and you have to pass a CPA exam and pass that with at least 70%. All, I think it's all 5 parts there are now. It's over a 3-day period. You take test uh, every morning and every afternoon until the third day. You just take one in the morning and you're about to give out by then. And then each year that after you pass the CPA exam, then you have to have at least 1 year of experience with another certified public accountant who can sign off that you've completed the experience hours to get your license. And so I went to Brigham Young University and got a Master of Accountancy and then sat for the exam, passed it, and then worked for a firm for about 5 years. But after 1 year, I was certified.
Wow. And then after the 5 years, you started your own business, Hunter and Associates. Is that?
No, after 5 years, I was hired away by another international firm to come and work in their office in Salt Lake City. I was there for about a year, and then their local office was acquired by another firm. And I went to that office, which was a different uh, actually international CPA firm. After a couple of years there, I left and joined with some CPAs that I had known at the first at the first firm I was with, they wanted me to come with their firm and start a tax department. So I left. That was Nielsen, Elgren, Durkin and Company, and they were a regional firm. I was the tax partner for the whole firm, and I hired a number of staff, and I was the head of that department until one of the other partners in the firm and I left and formed our own local firm, Hunter and Hashimoto. And then he went to work for a client, and then it was just Hunter and Company. So,
There you go.
yep.
A lot of experience. So a CPA. So what do you spend, you think, most of your time doing? Is it tax accounting kind of thing? I mean, what kind of tasks? If you're the business owner, I guess you probably employed a number of people, but I guess nowadays, what kind of tasks, I guess, are you involved with?
Well, I focused on the tax area, but maybe we ought to talk just a little bit more generally that CPAs do things besides tax.
Mhm.
They do financial audits for companies, and they review financial statements, which are basically their statements that show the assets and the liabilities that a company or an individual has. And then they show the net income, which is the revenue that's coming in minus the expenses. That gets you the net income. So a lot of CPAs do what's called write-up work and audit work, where they prepare financial statements for people, for businesses, and then they express an opinion that they're fairly stated. And a lot of banks, or if you go apply for a loan, a lot of times the bank, the lending officers, and Chris would know a lot more about this maybe than I do, but they will want to see your financial statements. And for large businesses and large loans, they will want a certified financial statement, which has to be done by a CPA. So that's one of the functions that a CPA does. Another thing that CPAs do is they become the in-house accountants for large companies, and they may become the chief financial officer of a corporation, or they may be uh, basically do the accounting for the company and prepare the internal financial records. And then the area that I did a lot of, that I still do uh, a significant amount, is preparation of tax returns and consulting with clients about how to save money, how to reduce their taxes to the lowest amount that they legally can. So that's an area, tax consulting and preparation. And then the final area that I have done quite a bit of, and I probably enjoy the most, and that is expert witness work as a testifying in cases in front of the court about tax and accounting issues. So that's basically what a CPA does.
You have so it's a big field. There's lots of opportunities if someone loves numbers. What part of talking about love and loving the job, is there certain things that you love to do that you find some fulfillment, some enjoyment over other things?
Well, I think my favorite part of being a CPA is that you get to meet with people and to help them with their financial matters and give them advice and counsel, not just about their income, but about how to save taxes and what maybe their expenses may be out of line. Uh, Basically, your financial advisor. I enjoy meeting people, and I think that's really fun to meet people. I've made many friends. Many of my clients have been my longtime friends now that I met as clients. I also really enjoy the expert witness work.
Hmm. It's interesting you bring that up. So it's not about numbers. I mean, you have to become an expert in your field, but it's more about the relationships you build over, 20 years. If I look back at the credit union industry and the career I've had, some of the most fulfillment I've had is those relationships you build over 20 years. and helping people. I think, like you said, you can't help somebody save money unless you become an expert in your field and you know all of those fine details. If you excel, you can help save your clients money. And I think you do a very good job at that.
Thank you, Chris. I think that part of being able to do that is getting to know the client personally, um, at least on the basis of what their preferences are, what they enjoy doing in life, what their goals are financially. And I think that a CPA, when you work with people doing their taxes, it's very personal information. And so you have to be very confidential with it. You
Hmm.
don't you don't want to betray people's confidence because it's kind of like your doctor that it's a very personal relationship and you don't want other people to be able to know what's discussed with your CPA.
Yeah. So there's some characteristics you've talked about, some integrity. Um, yeah, you wouldn't be in business very long if you were sharing some of those details.
That's right.
Um, yeah, that would not be good. You said something very interesting, and I've always found that aspect of your career, how you do the expert witness stuff. I wonder if you'd mind talking about what it's like, what you do when you go into court, why you would be called to court. What That's a very interesting and somewhat intimidating, I imagine, to testify in front of a judge about those kinds of things.
It is it's an interesting area to be in and one that I have really come to enjoy. It can be very stressful. Usually what happens is I am approached by someone, by an attorney, to work with them on their client's case. And they will say, for example, my client was a partner with other parties in a partnership. And my client believes that the other parties were not honest and did not share the revenues and the income and the distributions as was agreed in the partnership agreement.
Huh.
And so what will happen is they will ask me, number one, will I take the case? They'll send me some information about the case. And what I would say about that is when you accept a case, you want to make sure that your client is the good guy, that your client isn't lying and isn't cheating because if they are and you have integrity when you get on the stand, you're going to testify to what happened. And if your client is the one that was doing things that were bad, you're going to have to testify to that effect, and it's not going to go over very good with your client. But nevertheless, if you're not honest and don't have integrity, then you're not going to get hired again because you'll lose the case.
Huh.
So the best thing is to evaluate the case, and then you take all the information, and sometimes there's boxes of information that I go through, and usually I'll have a staff or two people help me review the documents, and then we'll analyze the data and come to conclusions. And quite often they will ask us to write an expert witness report where we'll summarize the facts in the case. And then we also have to summarize what our testimony is going to be in court in general. That is then provided to the other side, and their expert witness will have an opportunity to look at what I said. I will likewise have an opportunity to look at what they said. And then when we go into court, we should be prepared based upon the information and the areas we know that are going to be pertinent to the case. But it is I would liken it a little bit to a sporting event because yeah, you're you're testifying about things and that are contrary to the other side. The judge is going to hear your arguments, and then the judge will make a decision so you know if you won or lost. And quite often you win some and you lose some, but you want a fair outcome for your client. And sometimes I've won them all, sometimes I've lost them all, but I want enough that they keep coming back and wanting me to hire me to represent them or to help them analyze facts in another case.
Oh, very interesting. So, for instance, for an example, you might have a partnership that one partner maybe has a different set of books. Last year we made 500,000. The partnership is dissolved, they go their separate ways, and maybe one of the partners finds out that that was not correct. Maybe they made more like 1 million, and he's trying to, withhold some money from the other partner, and so they end up in court. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's an example. Yes, I had one that involved two partners in an area near here, Park City, who had basically it was kind of a resort home, kind of a fancy Airbnb, I guess it could be. It was very expensive, and the one partner was managing it, and he was pocketing money and not putting it all in the bank account for the partnership. And so when it came to the end, he was claiming that he got more of the proceeds from the sale than he was entitled to because he had already taken a lot of money. And
Oh,
so I would have to go through the bank statements and then go through the bookings for the Airbnb, the reservations, and analyze how much money should have come in and did come in versus how much was actually deposited and accounted for.
hmm. Interesting. It's sad, I guess, that service is needed. Too bad that people can't just be honest. You know,
It
it's
is bad, but when you see that your client has been taken advantage of, it's good to be able to help them recover what was stolen from them.
yeah. So in a sense, I guess that's part of the fulfillment or the enjoyment that you have from the job is trying to restore some sense of justice to a client or restore some loss, I guess.
Yes, yeah, to be able
Oh,
to, and quite often what will happen is there will be a pot of money because they've sold the building and they're trying to decide how that should be divided between the partners. And so then they want me to analyze and come up with how it should be divided.
oh, I see. Well, very valuable service. I think you know, it's more than just sifting through numbers. I guess there's a lot of that in preparation for court. And, there's been a number of situations in my career where I felt a lot of stress, anxiety, and, where you're preparing for a board meeting where these people are very professional and they expect you to perform at 100%. Most of the time, I find that if I'm anxious, is because I have not prepared myself enough. And I have to go back and look through the numbers and figure out any possible question board members could have. And if I'm prepared, then it seems like some of that anxiety and nervousness seems to go away. And I don't know if you found something similar.
Yeah, I like to, well, I will go through tons of, boxes, pages and pages and pages of documents, generally in a case. And you are talking with the attorney, you're talking with the client, then you do the expert witness report, and it may be months before you go to trial.
Wow.
And so then usually for 1 or 2 nights before going to trial, I will spend quite a bit of time reviewing all the documents, maybe even reviewing some of the original papers that I went through to analyze, plus my expert witness report and the analysis I've done to make sure that that's all on the tip of my tongue. And and if you if you are being honest and if you review your information, your data, then there's no reason to be nervous. And
Hmm.
I think that when people are nervous, it's usually because they're trying to hide something, or they're, like you said, they're not prepared and they don't know the
Hmm.
answer. When you're on the stand, you will probably be asked a question or two that you don't know the answer to. It wasn't in the data you reviewed, and the data may not exist to review, but you'll get asked questions. And it's very important to be honest and say, I don't know the answer to that. I didn't have any data that was relevant to that I was able to review.
Hmm. Have you ever gotten on the stand and realized maybe the client wasn't who you thought they were? Wish you hadn't taken the case.
I would say there was maybe one case where I think neither party was very reputable,
Oh,
and I didn't, I did the best I could, but you got to be honest. And if you don't, if you think that your client was in the wrong in an area, you have to tell the court that.
wow. Have you
And
had to do that before?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
jeez. And they still pay your bill.
Usually you have an engagement letter that requires them to pay your bill regardless of the outcome. I do have cases that I've never gotten paid on though.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes if your client loses, and sometimes they shouldn't have lost, but maybe the attorney didn't present it well, or maybe you didn't present your case well, then maybe the client doesn't have money to pay you.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
But
Well,
generally, you get paid, and generally, uh, it's usually the client is thanking you for a job well done.
yeah. Well, for the job that you do, I'm sure that most people are very, very pleased. So speaking about the money part, I don't know, as you grow in your career, um, I would imagine going forward, being a CPA and serving clients, you would be, maybe it depends on the position, but you would be able to provide for a family. Do you think, as far as the income side, that's growing, or do you think with some of this new AI stuff that could change
I
and
think, yeah, I think it's a growing area. The problem with AI is that doesn't have, at least yet that I know of, have the ability to make judgments about how things should be categorized. For example, there are very technical and very, I would say, diverse facts surrounding income and expenses. And there are, for example, when you're doing taxes, which is where uh, a lot of my work is, there there may be there may be case law. There's the statute and there's case law. So Congress may pass a law and they leave it to the Internal Revenue Service or the Treasury Department, which the Internal Revenue Service is a part of, to interpret what that law means and how to implement it. And quite often, the courts decide that the IRS interpreted it wrong. So, what we're doing as human beings doing tax work is we're reviewing the facts, we're reviewing the law, or we already know the law because we've been studying it. And then when new cases come up, for example, in my career, I've had times when maybe I was taking a position on a tax return because I thought it was too risky. And then someone somewhere in the country uh, disagrees with the IRS, takes it to court, which is a very expensive process, wins wins. And then now we have case law that contradicts this, what the IRS interpreted it. And the court says, well, this is not what Congress meant when they passed this law that reads this way. So I think that's where AI will always be trying to catch up to develop.
Hmm.
And I think that AI will probably replace some of the simple tasks, but the judgment call and understanding exactly a client's business situation and why this is not what the IRS was anticipating would be disallowed. So,
Hmm.
and there's tax law is interesting because often it will have provisions in the law that phase out. And so there'll be a provision that applies this year and next year, but then the following year it phases out.
Hmm.
So that's constantly got to be updated in your
Hmm.
software. And
Like the tax breaks. They don't ever phase out new taxes though.
no, no,
They just phase out the credits. They don't want to give those away for very long.
no, the deductions are always being attacked.
Yeah. So, question for you. You're probably what, 5 years or so from retirement, maybe less.
I hope
But
less.
so after all of that time, looking back, if you were to start again, if you were back in high school or if you were back, in your younger years, would you take the same path or would you do anything differently?
It's easy to say looking back with 2020 vision that I might have done it a little bit different and that I might have, when I got out of high school, gone, if I had known that I was going to be a CPA, just say, I'm just going to go straight through and get my accounting degrees and get my CPA license. When I graduated from high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I
Yeah.
suspect that many young men are in that boat. And I think that some may view, I went to school for 7 years before I got my master's degree in accounting. And I could have shortened that by 2 years had I known that I wanted to get a master's degree in accounting and tax. But instead, I got a lot of economics courses. I did a lot of English and writing. I did a lot of uh, agricultural. I was in agricultural economics as a major for a while. I learned lots of things that have been beneficial to my career that I'm glad I have, especially probably the economics and the writing. But I think that if a young man knows what he wants to do, or a young woman knows what she wants to do, that the best thing is to talk to someone who's doing that and see what the shortest route is to your goal. But if you don't know exactly what you want to do, don't be afraid to take a number of uh, courses and look at a number of majors. Take a little bit of accounting, take a little bit of business, take a little bit of economics, maybe totally unrelated fields. I was an art major for a while, and I enjoyed all of it.
Yeah. We were talking before is, I think the world is a different place than when I was going to school. I kind of went to the University of Utah, got a business management degree, and I think it's a different world. It's hard to just have a general degree and then come out of school and get a job. Really, if I was to do it again, you know, um, these days you've got to kind of have a plan, and hopefully you've spent some time going to job fairs and talking to people in different careers, and I would say unless you're going to have a specific reason, like you want to do an attorney or you want to be a CPA or you want to be a surgeon or doctor, I would avoid college. I think they're craziest in there.
Well,
Um,
I think I would agree with you, Chris, to the degree that I think that a lot of general education nowadays, in particular, worse than it used to be, is not really related to work,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is more philosophical and political. And I think that that often trade schools, or if you knew you wanted to do computer programming or work in the IT field or the AI field, I don't know that you need a general, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
college degree to do that. And I think some of the smartest people I know don't have a degree.
Hmm. Yeah.
But, but there are other occupations, like if you want to be a CPA, you're not going to be, you have to have a 5-year degree in Utah in order
Yeah.
to sit for the exam.
Right. Exactly. They kind of force that. Um,
Yeah.
well, if you, I don't want to keep you very long, but I wanted to finish with maybe some extracting out some more wisdom from you, Robert.
Well,
Um,
I have a lot, but
yeah. I mean, generally, if we step outside a career, I know there's been um things that we all have challenges in life. And what have you done, as you've faced personal challenges? We all have them. What are some tools, or what are some things that you use to kind of help through some of that turmoil?
well, I there are a number of things that have helped me get through difficult times, and I think that, if you don't have some difficult times, then you're not going to get experiences that really make you grow. So I don't think difficulty should be avoided.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be met head on, be prepared, do the work to work through it. But I would say that you need to take care of yourself. I would say spiritually, intellectually, and physically and emotionally. And
Hmm.
and I think that when you are, let me just back up just a bit. I think that basically, if a young man or woman uh, doesn't have children out of wedlock, gets married, gets a job, and sticks with it at least for a period of time to learn the lessons that it has to teach you, I think that there's a very high percent of people who make those kind of healthy life choices that will be successful financially and in other areas that may matter just as much or more than financial. And to me, you mentioned my biking. Uh, that's an area that I has helped me to deal with the stress of my job, the stress of my family. It's a social thing that I can do with friends, and it's physically it gives you the stamina to do the things you need to do. And
Yeah.
I think that being physically active to the extent you can, doing things you enjoy outside of your career are very important and help you to be uh, more well-rounded and have an enjoyable life.
Yeah.
I think that if your happiness depends only on your career, then you kind of miss the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. There seems to be this connection between mental tasks and uh, physical exercise. When you're stressed mentally, it seems like it's some relief to, spend time on the bike. For me, it's been working out for years. There's a connection between the spirit and the body, and excelling. If you're putting in everything you've got on the bike, or you're putting everything that you have in the gym, um, it carries forward into your work. And I think the stress, you can relieve stress that way. I think there's pillars in your life. I think, being physically fit is a pillar. And the main pillar, spiritually would be God. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, everyone can be against you, but God will never abandon you. He will always be there with you. And I've talked in a number of videos about the Lord, with God being with me in some of my darkest times.
Yeah. And I think that you need to have some space that is for you to develop that relationship with God and with yourself, where you can have quiet pondering and process what's going on in your life and in your career and in your family. And I would just mention this too, when if you're seeking a spouse, I think the most important thing in seeking a spouse is to choose someone that you respect. There will be times that you can't stand them, but if you respect them, then those tender feelings of love and companionship will return and grow and
Yeah.
continue on and on. My wife and will have been married 50 years this coming October, and that was I remember meeting her, and I foolishly said, my friend asked me about her, and I said, well, she's not my type, but the guy that marries her will be very lucky. Well, fortunately, I matured enough to be the guy that married her. So
Yeah, that's very wise. Yeah, someone that you can respect. I think, these days it's so focused on the physical, and I think it's very important to have a physical interaction, but, you
yes,
know, is someone, I think the real definition of love is if you're willing to sacrifice, to suffer for this other person, sometimes even putting your own needs aside and saying, all right, what do you need? Obviously there's a number of things I need, but I'm going to put that aside and listen if that's what it takes. But
I agree. I think I'm happiest when I have not focused on what she's doing for me, but when I have done something for her that is kind and loving and patient. Uh, I'm happier then than when she does something for me.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's important. If you want to meet that perfect spouse, that person that fits the right person, it really starts at home. You've got to be that perfect. You've got to improve yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself. What am I bringing to the table? Why would someone want to marry me? What am I doing to make myself better? What assets do I have? And if I don't have much, then that's where I need to start. Is I, you know, need to focus on an education or improving my character. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you said something very interesting just a few minutes ago. I wanted to talk about real quick, and then I'll let you go. But you said, um, quiet, spending time um, when you have difficult times, kind of quieting your mind or spending time alone. And I don't know how you feel, but I know sometimes there are so many voices when you're going through difficult times that tell you you're not good enough or tell you just to give up or to tell you it's not worth it or all these negative voices. And sometimes the answers to problems, the answers to solutions come when I find a quiet place where I know I'm not going to be interrupted. Like if I get up at 4 a.m. or earlier and I